I'm Hannah,
I'm Laura.
and we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now, we're bump in the year of the Dresden, and we
Year
are
of the Dresden.
entering into the final chapter of season 6A of the Year of the Dresden
Season
podcast.
6A.
So,
I
yeah.
totally, yeah, that's true. I should start labeling these 6A, 6B because we're coming back.
We are coming back to season 6. I have it logged, and Laura and I have an hour pod master sheet, and I do have them marked as 6A, 6B, 6D so that we can kind of
I
keep internal
did
track.
not see that, but that
Um,
is great planning.
I think I just updated it because I was like, well, we need
Okay.
to list these differently, but we are entering
Yeah.
into the final chapter of 6A. We'll never have another 6A again, guys. So, gonna be
This series
6B.
is so long.
So long.
How many books are there out right now? 30
I
some?
think that there's like 17 books that are like mainstay ones, but then there
But
are a
there's
bunch of
also
other ones.
comics and
Yeah.
all these other things.
I feel like you and I have talked more about like shifting the Patreon over to doing some more like specific things of Otherworld where it's like, yeah, you want to hear what we think of the offshoot novel? Pay us $5 and we'll tell you all about it.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
because we're gonna put and I think you and I discussed like maybe watching a couple of the Dresden Files TV show and
Oh
putting that
yeah.
up on Patreon for our reactions of a 40-year-old man playing a 25-year-old man. See how
Yes.
that works. So, I think it will be interesting because this is a very extended universe, and I do think we could probably do that. And so, even Wheel of Time, otherworldly stuff, we could start expanding the universes on some of the things we've done over on the Patreon. So, let us know if you're interested in that, folks.
I would actually really like to get some feedback on what people would like over on Patreon
Yeah.
and what you think it would be like fun things to cover, that type of stuff. So if you have any suggestions, send us an email or shoot us a message on Discord or
Yeah.
Insta or Twitter, wherever you're finding us at. Totally open
Because
to that type of
Hannah's
thing.
wedding is 2 weeks away, or 10 days by the time you guys are hearing this in your ear balls.
Earballs, ew! I
So
don't like that term.
well, I said it, so too bad.
Ew.
So make sure that Hannah will have a little bit more free time so we can like push back on the Patreon, get a little bit more
Yes.
information on there, expand it a little bit more, and stop doing things like watch Scream, which is what we're going to be doing this month, and I'm ecstatic
Yay!
about it. Ah, I can't believe it. Laura gets to watch Scream for the first
The
time. You're
first
so
time.
lucky.
I'm not a
Um,
scary movie person,
Oh
so
gosh, I just love that movie so much. I'm gonna nerd out so hard because I know so many fun facts, my hyperfixation in
perfect.
reality. Um, so yeah, but let us know because we're gonna be focusing on, the website, on our Discord, on Patreon a little bit more as I am able to actually do
Yeah.
things again. My weekends will be free and I won't sit there going, what table should this be? And where should it be put in position to the head table? And where do I put Laura's husband? uh,
Alone. You put him alone by
I,
himself. Put him
I
to work. That's what he should be doing. He should be waiting tables. That's what's
I
happening.
put him at a table with our friend Bobby's husband, and then
That's fair.
with one of my sister's friends and one of my sister's husbands because he didn't want to sit with the children.
That's
so
fair.
so he's at a kind of a mishmash table, but I'm sure he will love it. But
If not,
bef-
he will be put to work
Yes,
bartending.
bartending, his passion. Laura's husband, secret bartender. Uh, but before we get into the plot of, Harry Dresden and Laura and, sex work, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So first of all, I have been enjoying all of the Moo Deng content on
Oh,
all of the
yes,
social media. Like Moo Deng is a pygmy hippo that is, I believe, in a zoo in Thailand,
I believe so.
and she's the most adorable hippo I've ever seen. I love her so much. She has the best personality because one minute she can be sweet, the next minute she's flailing when they're trying to stick her in a bath. And that's the energy I think we all should aspire to.
That's
And I
good.
love Mudeng so much. Everybody look up Mudeng and see how cute she is and how they're always hosing her down and she's trying to bite at the hose and everything or
Oh,
bite the zookeepers. It's glorious. I love all of the videos I see of her, and they always make me smile. So I've been enjoying Moo Deng
Oh,
for
good.
a long time now.
Did you see the TikTok I sent you of the panda bear who's like super excitable and like
I
he's
didn't
lived
see
in
that one.
captivity for so long? It's the cutest thing. You'll have to open up TikTok and watch it later, where he like he gives like people high fives through the glass and
Oh,
he's like the most active panda bear ever. So like he's like always trying to like strike a pose and then falling over. He's just like
oh.
extroverted panda bear. And I saw
I
him and I was like, that's adorable. I love him.
I saw this clip that was like, how have pandas survived this long? Where it's just like pandas falling down and rolling through things, and they're just so clumsy and they can't get through most of their challenges within captivity. So
I
it made
know.
me chuckle quite a bit. There's also this like baby penguin, an emperor penguin at some zoo that is huge. It's like larger than all of the other adult penguins in the same uh, containment area where
Yes,
it's
I've
at.
seen him, and his
And
like
I was
parents
like,
are these
oh my
tiny little
gosh.
penguins hanging out behind him, and he's like, "I am massive," and
I
like he's
wonder
just a
how does it get
baby.
that big?
I don't know, but he's just a baby.
I haven't done enough research on why that one is big or if there's some kind of situation where like that one was hatched by a different species or something. I didn't look into it that much. I just saw a couple of videos of him and I was like, okay, he's very fluffy and cute. I kind
He
of love
is
him
very
as
fluffy.
well.
He
But
is very fluffy and cute. I love that guy.
he very much just has the energy of just like kind of waddling around like, I'm here. And
And I'm Allie.
and
And I'm Eunice.
I'm
Oh
glad you picked
gosh.
up on that
Yes,
because I was a little afraid that you wouldn't know who that was.
oh no, I mean that was very much our college era because I remember and
Tiny
I'm all
hands.
by myself.
The
Like
tiny hands, Kristen Wiig.
yes.
What a
Oh,
class act.
very
Class
class
act.
act. So yeah, good.
I've also been enjoying Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, back in that era again. But I also started listening to Conan's wife, Liza's podcast, Significant Others, which is a history informative podcast where she chooses figures throughout history and focuses on their significant other, whether that was their spouse or a person in their life who was just very important to them, that didn't maybe get as much of the recognition as them. Because Conan and Liza are very much into history. I don't know if people know this about Conan O'Brien, but he reads so many history books and biographies. Like he is a very smart individual. Everybody knows this because he went to Harvard and I think he was like top of his class at Harvard and
Yeah.
all these like titles that he'll blow off and be self-deprecating about. But he actually is a really intelligent individual and he reads tons of biographies and has a deep interest in presidents and everything. And he's always joking about Richard Nixon and stuff. Well, uh, his wife Liza is also interested in history too, it seems, and she started this podcast, and it's actually like not a su the episodes are not super long, but she'll spend the first part of or there's like episodes that are done in kind of like a dual situation where the first episode will be very much like delivering all the information, and then the next episode has a guest on, and they talk about the person that was previously mentioned. And I really have been enjoying that podcast as well. Conan was on for the one where she covered Mary Todd Lincoln.
Hmm.
And so I think that that's kind of a fun podcast too, just to get like small glimpses into the people who are maybe a little more behind the scenes, but had a very large impact on some of these historical figures. So I've
Yeah.
been enjoying that podcast too. I also read a couple of things recently. I read Station 11 at your request, Hannah. And because you read this and you were
Yay.
like, I need you to read Station 11. I loved it. I thought it was great. Because
It's so
I know you
good.
said your sister-in-law was kind of like, I
No,
don't.
no, no. My sister-in-law loved it. I did a
Oh,
buddy
so
read with someone
who was it that
and they
didn't
had
like
to
it?
quit. One of the people I did a buddy read with was like,
Okay.
I don't really like this. And I was like, oh, okay, well then stop. But like, I love it.
I thought it was good. I think was it you that told me it had Piranesi vibes for you?
Yeah, that was
I
definitely
didn't
me.
pick up on that as much, but I definitely had like vibes of like The Stand, a more like lyrical version of The Stand. I
Okay.
feel like have you read The Stand?
I have read The Stand, yeah, so
Yeah,
I can
I
get
think
that.
that Stephen King literally could have shortened that book up a lot now after I read Station 11. I'm like, there's no way that The Stand needed to be that long.
Station Eleven's brisk 290
Yeah,
pages, and you're like,
it's
wow, you really
I'm like,
droned
Stephen King,
on.
what were you doing? Like that was way too long. We went on too many tangents.
It's amazing.
And I say that, and I really like The Stand too. So
Yeah, same.
that's a good book. But Station 11 I thought was really great, and I love the way that all of these storylines kind of mixed in together, a la Valentine's Day the movie. Uh,
I like that that was your go-to Valentine's Day the movie.
I wanted to pick an obscure movie. I didn't want to pick like
Beautiful, thank you.
yeah, I wanted to pick an obscure movie. So Valentine's Day the movie, everyone knows how that goes.
Everyone's a huge fan of Valentine's Day the movie.
Yes, everyone is aware of how that is. Um,
Famously, Julia Roberts' best role. Was she in that one? She
Taylor
was no,
Swift was in that one with
I was
Taylor
thinking of that
Lautner.
awful one, Mother's Day. Mother's Day was
Mother's
another
Day
one.
is like that. New Year's Eve is like
Mm-hmm.
that.
My God, I saw New Year's Eve in theaters with one of the girls from our sorority, and she was blatantly getting drunk in the theater, like cracking beers, and she would be like,
Oh my
Hannah,
gosh.
cough a little bit. So if I told you who it was, you would be like, that tracks.
I think I know actually a blonde.
Yes, a blonde who used to call me Nancy. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
makes total sense. I
shocking.
I also Love Actually follows that
Yeah, it
situation. That's
does.
probably
That
what
was
people
the
are
more
more familiar with, I would assume. But
probably.
Valentine's Day is what I'm going to stick with. Um, about as much of a classic as Station 11. I think we can say that at this
Yeah,
point.
fair
Uh,
enough.
but no, Station 11 was really good, and I liked that there was this interesting dynamic in terms of the relationships that were I don't know how to describe the relationships that we see on the page between the character who at the beginning is playing King Lear
Mm-hmm.
and all of the people surrounding him, because everyone in the book is somewhat connected. But I
Right.
really appreciated seeing the glimpses of the people who were connected to directly to this character. And it makes me more curious how they'll portray this all in the show, because kind of have pictured them all in a certain way and things going in a certain way, which I I know that I'm probably going to be let down in certain ways, because I did enjoy this book so much that I have this vision in my mind of how things should be,
Yeah.
and it's going to be different watching it. But I thought it was a really well done book. I was a little bit let down by the ending because there was so much buildup and oh, not tons of suspense, but enough like suspense and like n not super like keep you on your toes moments, but enough to keep you interested in wanting to keep reading.
Yeah.
But the ending I was a little bit disappointed with because it kind of trailed off a little bit and it fell a little
Yeah.
flat for me.
That is very fair. I think the
But
ending
the
is
rest
very
of the
much
book
like,
saved it for me. Like I ended up giving it 5 stars on Goodreads. I'd say it's maybe like a 4.25 or 4.5 stars that I just rounded up. But I
yeah.
think that it's very beautifully written. I think it's so well done. I really appreciate the flashback situation. I appreciate getting to get into all of these different character situations, and the way that the characters were tied together was really unique too. And that I think was fascinating. And I wish there would have been a little more digging into the like pandemic of it all, but also I think that maybe that wasn't the author's goal, that that was kind
Yeah.
of just a situational plot device
Well, I
moment.
mean, this was before we lived through a global pandemic,
Can you
so
imagine? I can't believe writing that and then being like, "Uh-oh, I predicted
uh-oh.
it."
Whoopsie
Uh,
daisy.
Sorry, guys. I didn't mean for that to happen.
So I
Nobody go
do
to
think that
King
that
Lear.
probably hurt a little bit, but I will say I
Yeah.
watched the first episode. So no spoilers, but I will say one small thing. They do change the setting of the King Lear play to Chicago, which was an interesting
Interesting. Okay.
change. Um And so, yeah, I've only watched the first episode. I need to watch the rest, and we could probably do a TV Tuesday on it.
Yeah, let's definitely do a TV Tuesday because I would be interested to get some of your thoughts, and I think we could get a little more. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to spoil things for people who haven't read it because I do think it is a book that people should read. Be
Yes.
and it's one that like definitely not super predictable. There
No.
are some predictable things, but I would say for the most part, I'm not going to mention any more plot details about it because I want people to read it and I don't want to ruin things about the book for
Right.
people because I think it's really good.
I would agree. I love them. I love that book so much. Um, and yeah, definitely read it. I would say like the best part of it in my mind that isn't too spoilery is like it doesn't take like a huge, like Laura says, it kind of pulls back from the pandemic-y area of it and it kind of looks at like art after something like this happens, which I think is an
Yeah.
interesting topic of conversation is, what type of
Well, the
art is
importance
created.
of art and also the importance of connection and how connection to yourself and to others is really important. So
Yeah.
I thought it was very well done. But yeah, people need to read it. And then once you've read it, we'll talk about it on Discord or something because
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it for others because I think it's a good book.
Perfect. Well, I'm so
I
glad you
also
liked it.
read at your recommendation again, Hannah,
No, we
Joyful
haven't.
Recollections of Trauma by Paul Shear.
Oh my
I listened to
gosh.
the audiobook and it was a really
So
good
good.
audiobook. I
Yeah, it's such a good audiobook.
He did have those sections though from like the podcast, which I really appreciated, and it made it fun when it was like, "Oh, I listened to this episode," or
I
you could
know.
pick out moments where you're like, "I've heard this before."
Right.
I
Like,
really liked that. I also just liked hearing a little bit more about his life. He didn't get into enough detail, I think, on some of the funny things that he mentioned about his life, but because like the mom kiss thing
oh my gosh, that's so funny.
makes me laugh so much, and I'm like, we still need more info on that. I don't
I
think you
mean,
got far enough in on that.
I do love that like that's been so infamous though that he's like, guys, it's been
Yes.
like done to death. I can't talk about it anymore. I was
Nope,
5.
keep
And,
talking about it.
so if you don't know, Paul Scheer is someone who's like been in comedy world for a really long time. He was most famous for his work on The League or his podcast, How Did This Get Made, which is about
Yes.
terrible movies. We've talked about it before on the podcast, but it's literally my comfort podcast.
Hmm.
They release a matinee Monday every Monday and then a new episode every other week. And I listen to every matinee Monday, no matter how often I've already heard the episode. I've probably heard the reindeer games episode like 6 times by now. So I freaking love that podcast so much. So he had a very
Their cats episode is one of the
oh my
best podcast
gosh.
episodes I've ever listened
It's
to. Like
so
I could
good.
listen to that a million times and never get sick of that podcast.
I just love them so much. I've seen them twice in I saw a an episode for Space Jam, which I disagree with their take on it. And because I loved that movie, even if it was just full of product placement. And then I saw The Dog Who Saved Christmas, which was also a very
Oh.
terrible movie. So I've seen a couple episodes with them. So that's Paul Shear, but like he wrote this book because in the podcast, like he reveals so much of his life where people
Well,
are
I
like,
wouldn't say that he's revealing so much. He'll just like mention certain things,
yeah,
as one does when you're in that kind of situation. Like you and I do this, Hannah, when we're
right.
talking that we mention certain things, and he would mention things, and people would be like, "Wait a minute, what? What was that? Repeat that again," because that sounds a little like not
Weird.
the
Like,
same
yeah.
experience that we all had growing up.
Like there was an episode where he was like, well, yeah, like I grew up on a farm with like, or I grew up in like the suburbs with like horses. And like his wife runs the podcast and she was like, wait a second, what are you talking about? And he's just like, yeah, I haven't talked to you before. And so this book is very much kind of a look at like
Delving into
why,
that a little
yeah.
more.
And like why he hasn't talked as much about it and things like that. And it's just so well done. I loved it so much.
Yeah, I think it was a good book. I appreciated getting more of this info about him because like we said, you just get these brief glimpses of his life on the podcast with some of these one-off stories, but it was really nice to kind of learn a little bit more about this person that you listen to a lot and
Mhm.
enjoy and to kind of learn like, oh wow, that a lot of things have happened to you and did not expect many of the things, but it also helps to kind of shape this person and the person that he has become when you
Yeah.
learn all these things about him. It's like, oh, well, this makes sense. And you appreciate how far he's come and the way he is now even more after you learn things about him like this. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good book, and I appreciated the suggestion because that was a fun audiobook to listen to. I did it in a day because it was a short book
Oh my.
and a
I
lot of fun.
I never do this because I don't know why, but like usually I'm like, oh, I'm in the car driving or I'm walking the dog. That's when I listen to audiobooks. It's more active. But with that one, I like sat in my bed and just like played stupid iPad games for like 5 hours listening to him just
Yeah.
talk because I was like, no, I want to listen to
That
everything.
was
I want
one
to
that
hear
I
it
listened
all.
to at just 1.0 speed. Usually I'm a
Oh,
1.5 girly, but I just listened at 1.0 because he is just fun to listen to and he speaks fairly quickly
he
too,
does.
actually. So I that was one that I listened to at 1.0 and was very cool with it. So
He's so nice. I love him
yeah.
so much now. Like such a huge fan of his after reading that. Like I was already a fan, but like just him personally, I feel like it's just
Honestly,
interesting.
some of the things that stood out to me most about that book were the ways that he was able to self-reflect on how he now recognizes the way that he acted in situations previously was inappropriate or why
Hmm.
he acted that way, and how even though he's changed as a person, he still could react poorly in a situation and not do the right thing, and how he's trying his best to be a better husband and father and to not delve into those more insecure and more toxic traits or moments that he's had in the past. And I was like, that's very refreshing to have somebody, address their life in such a way where they are acknowledging like, hey, yeah, I've done some really not great things and I have the ability to do not great things again,
Hmm.
but I am giving myself grace and trying to be better
Well,
and to help my kids also recognize like, hey, this is how we go about things. This is how we process things. It's
hmm.
okay to feel X, Y, and Z about these situations. And it was just really refreshing to see that growth that he
Yeah.
was talking about.
Well, and it's interesting. Like, I think there's things that, like, as time goes on, because we lived in a generation of people, like, our parents didn't go into some of the things that made, like, their life traumatic. They were quick to be like, oh, that wasn't that big of a deal. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I just don't want to, we don't talk about that. And I do think it's interesting hearing it from someone who's his age, who's like right in between our generation and our
Yeah.
parents' generation, where he's like, no, I don't want to be like my dad was. I don't want to brush something under the rug. I do want to be open and honest about it. And like, that's so interesting to hear from someone. And also, I just appreciate the way we're starting to look at like when people are actually young. Cause like Paul Scheer, he talks about having a very bad relationship with his mom's husband.
Hmm.
He was abusive. And he talked about
Hmm.
the effects that had on him as a teenager, where he was like, I was quick to beat people up because that was what I knew.
Yep.
And like, I had to learn that that was inappropriate. But like, there's still so much grace for being like, like you said, like, I know I was that person, but I don't want to be that person anymore. And I think that that's
And
really
I think
unique.
he also talked in the book about relationships that he had that did
Hmm.
not go well and how he struggled with anger for a really long time and was very inappropriate about his anger too.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that stood out to me was that when he's talking to his kids about certain things, he recognizes that he has that in him still, the ability to become really angry and handle situations in a way that's not great. And I just appreciated that acknowledgement too, that it's like I still may do something that isn't super good and that I might, go off the handle or react in a bad
Yeah.
way, but I hope that I will have the ability to, you know, control my emotions or uh, deal with it in a different way because of the journey that I've been on, you know?
This is just very funny because you're making me realize that I see a lot of myself in Paul Shear, and I probably already saw that, but like it's stark contrast because I do remember that I was a very angry child and I was prone to screaming at people. I just told you off mic, like I get really emotional. Like I'm a screamer and I have to like make sure that I don't do that to people because it's a very bad trait. And I'm just like, oh yeah, Paul Shear and I have a lot more in common than I would like to think about. And the fact that I'm like, maybe we're just two adults with ADHD too.
Yeah.
Like, because he talks about, like, oh yeah, I've gotten into
He learned
fights.
later
Like,
in life that he had ADHD.
yeah. And I'm like, oh, maybe he and I are just like, we've had very similar life situations.
It could
So,
be.
but yeah, I'm glad you read it and I'm glad you enjoyed it because
Yeah, that
I
was a fun
really liked
read.
it.
I like
So,
celebrity memoirs, and I especially like some of them like this where people are brutally honest about things that
yeah.
have happened to them. And I think it was the right length too, because like sometimes celebrity memoirs get too long. And I know I've talked about Spare previously on
Oh,
the
yeah.
podcast. I don't think that was a horrible book. I think it was way too long. Like
Yeah.
I recognize that he has had a very interesting and hard and weird life, but at the same time, that book was way too long. And some of those things I was just like, I don't know that this was worth listening to for 40
5
hours.
hours. Yeah.
Like, the book was incredibly long.
So what you're
And
saying is you're not going to open up Barbara Streisand's memoir anytime soon.
likely not if it's 40 hours. I
Oh, do
don't
you not know this?
know.
Anne's
Would know what.
memoir. Her memoir is, let me see how many pages is it? Um, page count. Let's see. It's 970 pages,
That's
Laura.
obscene. That's
Audiobook
obscene.
read by her exceeds 48 hours.
Nope.
48
Nope. Nope.
hours.
Nope.
Can you imagine
It's
thinking?
longer than The Godfather. No.
I mean, it is Barbara Streisand, but like that's the moment of like, yeah, divas do exist, and like Barbara Streisand is a diva.
Did she start at
Like,
birth talking?
right. I
Like,
don't know. I just know that it's a really long memoir.
are we walked through all of her like bathroom breaks? What's like, come on.
She gives you a play-by-play of her entire mall in her basement.
Yeah, like, no. I'm sorry, that's too long.
$47. Can you imagine? Like
No,
that's so
it's $1 an hour.
expensive.
No,
Ah, God.
it's too
The
long.
Forbes, the biggest revelations from Barbara Streisand's 992-page memoir. You got a lot of them.
N-
Um,
No,
yeah, so that's fun. I didn't realize you didn't know that.
I had
That's
no idea. I
yeah,
I don't know that I necessarily seek out celebrity memoirs, but if I
yeah.
come across them, I'm very willing to read one.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Yeah, I just know that because I listen to a lot of I listen to a public or a pop culture podcast. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and they went into it. And they were like, "We're reading it. We're just not happy about it."
I don't blame them because that's
Yeah,
super long.
it's too long. It's too long, Barbara. Come on, honey. No one needs to know that much about A Star is Born. They've made four of them.
Right.
And yours was panned as the worst one, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's not great.
yeah, it's interesting. So, yeah.
And another thing that I enjoyed, I watched Inside Out 2.
Oh, did you like that? I haven't seen it yet.
It was okay. It didn't have the same effect as the first one.
Yeah.
They rarely do. Like, oh, so especially Disney movies, I feel like the second ones are never as good as the first. One of the like ones that sticks out in my mind as being as good as the first was Wreck-It Ralph, the
Hmm.
second one. I thought the second Wreck-It Ralph was really good. But most of the second Disney movies, the sequels, I have not thought were as good. This one, I wouldn't say it was bad, but I didn't have that same like deep like oh like
Right.
sobbing moment that I had in watching Inside
Oh
Out.
my gosh, where the sadness tells you that it's okay to be sad. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, that's too emotionally healing for me. I can't take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this one we're focusing on like a teenage Riley who's dealing
Hmm.
with new feelings like anxiety and embarrassment, and I think that it was valid to bring those things in, and it's very much showing how like our anxiety is there to protect us, but can also be harmful to us. And I think it
Right.
was good to show that in the realm of like a teenager, because this is when these things start to develop, where we start to have more of these like quote unquote fight or flight
Bigger emotions.
responses to things.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was a good movie. I would not say that it still gave me the very much like I love this that I got from Inside Out the first.
Yeah.
But I still think it was good, and I appreciated what they were trying to show in terms of the way that anxiety was there.
Yeah.
So, but
And I
I wouldn't discourage you from watching it by any means.
Yeah, I just haven't had much interest in like, the plethora of additional IP we keep doing for movies and things. Like it's
I
just
kind
harder
of
to buy
wonder why we
into.
have to like keep delving into the same properties all the time. It it kind like I get when one is popular that they want like some people want more and more and more of that thing, but I think we can have like and I'm like saying this as somebody who loves Star Wars. I
Right.
think that we can have new Star Wars properties that are not like all Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker. Let's have some news stories. And I think Disney, while they're maybe not like doing tons of things all about at least Disney Pixar is not doing tons of things all
Right.
about one thing. They are doing a little too much of like, you know what's popular? Frozen. Now we have a Frozen 2. Now we have a Frozen 3 that's coming out. And we have an
Yeah.
Inside Out 2. And we have this 2 and that. Like they're doing Moana 2. And I love Moana, but did we need a Moana 2?
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
think so.
I think we've done enough with that story. And I do think like there
I
is a
think it was fine that it
weird
just ended. Like, I think
right.
we need to be more okay with just having a one-off movie that just is done.
Or like even I don't know, there's something about they have to have existing IP to make money. And so they have to like put their pools into like these different things instead of building something new. When like I don't know, we grew up during sequels of like really bad sequels and there's
Terrible
nothing
sequels
wrong
like
with that.
Pocahontas 2. Like
Pocahontas 2 where she
Pocahontas, oh my gosh, no.
like we had to show that she did not marry John Smith, which also thank God, but like not the greatest
But and
either.
also like that whole story is just tragic. Like
Right.
the actual story
The
is
actual story is
the actual
terrible.
story of Pocahontas is tragic and awful and ruins the romanticization of like what they
Well,
try
she's
to
a
do in that
child. Like,
first movie, and it's just
yeah,
like, oh no, stop. And then Pocahontas 2 is just a travesty, but
yeah. So, like, we had bad sequels, but we also had some bangers. Like, I remember loving Beauty and the Beast, the Christmas one. Like, that one was
I liked that one
good.
too. I thought you were gonna say Lion King too,
Oh, and
and
Lion King too. I was gonna say that next because
I was
that's a
like,
banger.
that had some bangers of
Oh
songs.
my
Like some of
gosh.
them were absolute bops.
Dude, my little
He
niece is
lives
obs
in you. He lives in me.
I was like, deception, disgrace.
Disgrace.
He asked for trouble the moment he came.
Can I
Uh,
tell you that I see that zebra as we were singing it? I can see it, like its mouth opening, so perfect.
dude, my little niece is obsessed with Lion King right now. She says when she grows up, she wants to be Simba. And so,
Perfect.
like, we watched so much Lion King too, because we were all like, yeah, we'll watch that movie. Like, that's a good
Absolutely.
movie. Um,
I do
where
think
did
though there's like some movies though that it's like they were like Moana in my mind was so good.
I
We didn't need
know?
any more.
Well, and I mean, I know that these are movies for children, but I just wish they would like give us new IP for children then. Like parents want to have new stuff too, but
I
I
just
don't know.
think like instead of making sequels to a bunch of stuff, why don't we just have a new movie? Like I'm
Yeah.
try something new. Don't Disney is very afraid of failing, and
Yeah.
I actually a lot of these companies are very afraid of failure
Mhm.
to the point where they get a little bit bullied by their fans, and now apparently they're just going to let fans come in and do, like groups where they decide like, oh, would you like to see this? Oh no, it has a girl in it, so you don't want to see it? Okay. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's gonna be terrible.
Yep.
But yeah, um, Inside Out 2 was okay. I don't know that we needed it. but it was okay.
Okay, good to know. Thank you
So yeah,
for watching it for me and deciding if I
yeah.
needed to see it or not.
I
Uh-huh.
don't know that it's like you need to add to your list right away,
Got
but
it.
and in our next episode, I'll tell you about something you do need to add to your list. But go ahead, Hannah. What have
Oh.
you been reading and watching?
So we're getting into the wedding week, so my paralysis is just scrolling on TikTok a lot. I'm
Sure.
trying to look up how to download a Dooms like app where it's like, hey, you've been on here for 2 hours, you don't get any more today.
Hmm.
But for reading, I talked about this a little bit, but I was listening to The Battle Drum by Sarah L. Alrifi last week.
Yeah.
And I finished it. And honestly, I think it was better than the first book. I really liked it. I thought like the first book is very much like beginning world building where they're like in this battle and they're trying to win power. And this one is kind of like what happens after that happens and like how you can try to control power or how you can like deal with the ramifications of what happened in the last book. And it like
Hmm.
built out the world in such an effective way. And I just thought she like raised the stakes in a way that like I haven't seen in a lot of more modern books, like in an interesting way where it's a little bit more like hopeful but dark. Like I don't know how to describe it. I feel like a lot of the more modern books have like kind of skewed towards either grim dark or like very lighthearted fantasy. And I feel like this one kind of is in the middle of that. And I
Okay.
really, really like the way she writes. I also think
Okay.
like the way she writes is very kind of old school almost in my mind, where it's kind of like a flashback to the easier reading of like yesteryear where something didn't have to be like so epic and so big, like she writes in a way that like makes you feel like you know the characters and you can see what's happening on the page. And I just really liked that. Like I really liked the second book. I thought it was really good and it made me
Hmm.
excited to read the third book, which I rarely get when I read series. Like a lot of times I'm always
Okay.
like, yeah, I'll read it eventually, but the third one I was like, well, they don't have it on my library yet. So do I have to like buy the third audio? And I also think it helped that I did the audiobook. I
Sure.
really
You said
liked
those are good audiobooks.
yeah, and so I really just liked it overall, and I'm really happy I picked it up as an audio, and I was really excited to read the next one, and I'm like I'm pretty jazzed about it, which I'm rarely jazzed about like finishing a trilogy. Usually I'm just like, oh, I want to finish it for completion's sake, not because I'm
Hmm.
excited to read it. So here's to that. But that was really I've been reading some other books that I don't really feel like talking about on the podcast.
Sure. Yeah,
Um
that's fine.
but I have also been watching Only Murders in the Building.
Okay,
I
what season are you in?
so I just finished season 3 and watched the first 2 episodes of season 4.
Okay, I have not
Um,
watched season three at all,
okay.
so keep it a little later. Because I do
No,
intend to watch this at some point, but I feel like I have to be in the right mood for that show.
it's a very specific mood show, and I will say like I I obviously like Only Murders in the Building. I think it's so good, but like sometimes there is a little bit of like how I just talked about. Oh, I'm kind of going against myself, but I just talked about with Sarah L. Arifia, where I was like, oh, this feels like a blast from the past in the way she writes. Sometimes Only Murders in the Building gives like a throwback to old comedies or old like TV shows where the setup didn't always need a payoff because of the
Hmm.
way TV shows were created. Like from week to week, you could change things because people weren't rewatching something. You didn't rewatch
Hmm.
Friends, so you didn't have like, was Ross a virgin when he first got married or wasn't he? Like questions like
Hmm.
that where this show sometimes will make a choice and then in the next episode take away all of the things that happened in the last episode. And I get frustrated where I'm like, but like that doesn't make sense in the world. So like we are in a very comedic type world then where it doesn't feel as
Hmm.
realistic anymore. Where I feel like in the first season I was like, yeah, this entire show feels like rooted in reality. I feel like they keep like upping the ante and making it like bigger and bigger for the sake of comedic bits. And I don't know if it always works for me, but I like the show.
Sure.
Like it does make me not want to watch the show, but it is odd as they keep going in seasons where I'm like, is this seriously where we're headed with this? Like it just kind of takes
Right.
wild swings from episode to episode that doesn't always feel effective to me.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, it's a good show. I liked the mystery of the third season, and I thought it was like a
Okay.
good whodunit. So, and I also think that that critique that I'm making is probably a little bit disingenuous when you think about the fact that it's a murder mystery show. Where I'm like, yeah, you do have to build up stakes and then tear them down immediately in a murder
Yeah.
mystery show. So maybe that's what I'm bumping up against. But I think it's a little bit of a mix of
It's
the
such
two.
a difficult thing to do in that type of show where you're trying to be comedic, but at
Yes.
the same time, you're handling something that has to be fast-paced and is very suspenseful, which I
Yes.
think is hard to balance all of those things.
Yeah. And like it's a little bit wild. Something I did like about it is like they're not like beholden to a lot of their characters. So like sometimes it's
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, Mabel in this episode, well, like this person, but now she's over it. And I'm like, that's
Sure.
realistic, but like there's just some I feel like there's sometimes where I'm like, oh, you could tell this is a show created by two men from the like old guard of television.
Yeah,
Um and that's why people love it. So I get it, but at the same time it does leave a little bit wanting sometimes. So
that
yeah.
makes sense.
Um but yeah, I've been enjoying that. And I feel like we've talked a lot about your stuff, and I have very little to talk about nowadays because I'm just doing doom scrolling on TikTok. So, uh, but shall we dive into chapters 15 through
15 through
28?
28. I got it right this time.
Perfect. Good job, Laura. So we left Harry with a gun pointed at him from
Yes.
Lara. Um,
Lara, not Laura.
Lara,
Lara.
Lara.
I have a U.
You do have a U. Except I did mostly talk to text, so a lot of my notes say Laura on it. So apologies if I
You
ever
said it
offend.
wrong.
I know. I did actually, every time I say it, tried to say Lara, and it just would not take that
It's
hint.
very hard for me once I've like said a name, if I like come across a similar name like that, I will always mess it up.
I know. But she has him at gunpoint, and she's like pretty much saying Harry has to die. He's meddling in things that he shouldn't be. And Thomas is like, don't do it. Don't kill him. I need him. And we find out that Thomas is there's like hints that he might be trying to go up against his father, the big bad of the
Which
White
I
Court.
don't super understand the vampire families. Like they're a little bit confusing to me.
I think that that's on purpose.
Do you
Um,
understand them totally or
so
no?
like Thomas's father is the head of the White Court. And so
Yes.
it's made up of different families because you can have children in the White Court. And so
Like
he
they
kind of
birthed
like,
children, which
yeah,
is
they birthed children.
okay.
So the White Court
Because
can
I'm
birth
thinking more of
children.
like True Blood type situation where it's like, this is my child, and it's like, no, you just turn them into a vampire.
No, no, no. Specifically in the White Court, you can have babies, which is why Thomas,
Events happen.
yeah,
Yes.
you're gonna find out really soon as I go through these
Yes.
notes. But so like the White Court is they're a little bit more humanistic, which is why they can be out during the sunlight, which is why they feed. It's more like the Colin
More like
Robinson
an energy
energy
vampire.
vampire. Yeah. Jinx, you owe me a soda. I know. I will say your name, Lara. Laura.
Lara.
Lara. So I think with them they can birth children, the White Court. So it's like I feel like the White Court is more of like mafia-esque.
Okay.
This is Dresden's version of like vampire or Butcher's version of vampire mafia, where it's like, oh yes, you have these families and they all work together and they all vote on who's the controlling crime boss. And that's Thomas's father. And so his father is kind of like the head of that group. But because it's more crime bossy, you can have like overhauls of power and you can have those
Okay.
types of things. Where like the Black Court is more Mavra is the oldest one because most of them have died out. So she's the one in power by default, by being the strongest. But hers are more, they are more the traditional vampire, which is what they remind us all the time of like she bites people to turn them into vampires. She's able to feed on people. She's able to put like garlic and holy water. All of that controls her. And then the red vampires are like in betweeners, where like they can hide themselves as humans a little bit more effectively and use like seduction and things like that. But then there are, also kind of more old school vampires. So they're like the bridge in between because reasons. So I think that that's pretty
Okay.
much where it's coming from. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
but it's still, I think, confusing when we have multiple different ways to be vampires and it's not super explained.
Yeah, it's very wishy-washy on the way of its
Yeah.
explanations. So like because Thomas is part of like crime boss family vampires, his dad is the one who rules over everything and he's going to try to
Okay.
make a play for the head of the crime boss families pretty much. And so Lara is kind of like, I can't let you do that. And she goes to kill Thomas, but like during that time, Harry tries to slip out a gun from Thomas's pants. Thomas's pants are too tight. It's a whole
Which made
rigmarole.
me kind of laugh, honestly. Like,
I did think that's funny. Like these
can
are
you just see
two.
him like slipping around and trying to get that out of there and like, come on.
I I do like that these two brothers barely have two brains. Oh, sorry, slight spoilers, but
Spoilers,
I'm
Hannah.
sorry. But they barely have two brain cells bouncing around and they just want
Yeah.
mommy. So there's like a whole rigmarole. Irene shows up and then Black Court vampires show up, one of them being controlled by Mavra. And we find out in this section that Irene is also a white vampire, which I was like, what? How is that possible? She seems pretty normal. And then it's like, oh, it's because she doesn't know she's a white court
Are you talking
vampire.
about Amari or Inari
And
or what?
oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm calling her Irene. It's because I called her Irene in all of my text to talk.
It's
Is it
Amari, right? Or is it
Amari? You're correct.
Amari
I'm
or
so
Inari? I
sorry.
can't remember.
It's Amari, and I'm just an idiot who forgot this woman's name because I didn't care about her all that much.
It
But
might have just corrected because that's a weird name.
yeah, but Amari shows up and we find out she is a white court vampire as well, but in the rules of their crime boss family, you don't get to know you're part of the crime boss family until you are ready to feed pretty much. So,
You like grow into it.
yeah, and so she's very young and she's working on this exotic film set to get ready for when she's an energy vampire. Um and then the Black Court vampires try to kill Harry. Harry is able to like fight with everyone, including Laura, to help. Like she helps fight the Black Court vampires off. And Thomas is helping fight, and they get rid of them. I think they are able to kill one, and one is still
Yeah.
alive and
Well, and
free.
like the one that they had fought earlier that had the ear ripped off was there and everything,
Yeah.
and they all like fight them off, and some of them look like they're newer vampires too, which
Yes.
was also why I was questioning because there's this whole like it makes it sound like they were changed into vampires
That's
and
because they're Black Court vampires.
yeah, and that's why it was getting confusing for me because we have this situation where like Amari is slowly becoming a vampire in a different way. So then I'm like, but how do we know which court they belong to? So I was getting
You
very
were confused.
confused.
Um, but yeah, so one of them flees, the other one dies, and during this time, Thomas has like depleted all of his energy, so they have to
Yeah,
rush him to the White Court estate. And so when they rush there, Laura gives Harry guest rights, so he can't be killed while he is
yeah.
there. And then we meet Thomas's father, the big man
Wraith.
himself,
L-
Wraith.
Lord
Um,
Wraith.
Lord Wraith. And he is skeevy. He's weird about his children. He doesn't like Harry. And he's like, oh, Thomas is very, very sick. Take him to Justine immediately. And so
Which feels icky, but like Justine sees him and she's really upset because she loves him. And then Harry makes a comment about like how she's addicted to him and she's like, it's fine. And I'm like, is it? I don't know.
it's not. The way Justine's character is used is very sickening to me.
Yeah.
Um,
And then because we found out that Thomas is basically dying from like hunger because he needs
yes.
to feed so bad. And so then Justine basically is just like, it's fine. I'll offer myself up.
And and that's like the whole point of this is when someone is that depleted, they have to feed on someone and they
And they
cannot
can't
stop
control
themselves.
themselves.
And if they try to stop, they will kill themselves. So Harry's very upset because Justine is willingly going to her death for this person that she loves, and he's
Yeah.
like, and in his mind Thomas should be able to control himself, and Laura is very much like, well, she's just food, so I don't know what your problem is. um
Yeah.
and so it's a very complex circumstance happening. But during the
Hmm.
time, Harry also kind of like dozes off. And when he wakes up, he discovers
And
that,
he's like dreaming about like leaving the or he's reflecting on like leaving the orphanage and stuff and how Justin got him out of the orphanage and then he remembers Justin getting Elaine out of the orphanage too.
yeah, it's, yeah. And so then he wakes up and like, this is such a weird energy where in this entire book, like, Butcher spends so much time explaining what people's clothes are. And I'm like, I don't,
He does.
yeah. Like, he's like, well, Thomas is in a white cream sweater and some slacks. And I'm like, why do I care what Thomas is wearing right
So
now?
this may be just me, but I feel like Thomas is kind of like coded as bi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He has bi energy for sure.
And I don't know why. I feel like that is maybe why he is given more clothes descriptions.
But
I
like,
don't
then
know why that is, but
don't
it
make
does seem like it's related to that.
don't make the one bisexual character like the one who has to like have his clothing. Like
I'm
that's a
not saying
way.
that it should be
No,
that. I'm
no, no,
just saying I
no.
think that's why it is.
No, I agree, but like I think that's a way to like feminize bisexuality, and like
Yes.
bisexuality does not mean you're feminine. It means that you're interested in both sexes. It is not like that.
Well, because I feel like before we knew that there even was a Justine, he was kind of queer coded anyways.
Yeah. Oh no, he's very queer coded, and like it I don't know. The way we take Thomas's character in this book is random. I actually knew this spoiler. It was the one I accidentally saw 2 books
Oh,
ago
gotcha.
because when you and I were talking about Harry's rape, um I pulled it up and there was like a description of Justine being delivered to Harry like a package, and it said like from Harry's half brother, and I was like, why would you put that in here?
Yeah,
Like
why would
that's
they say that?
such a big spoiler to just randomly
Right.
throw in about this book. Like it was so random. So I've been sitting on that for like 2.5 books now.
So
And
you've got a weight off your chest today.
yeah, like I was just like, oh, finally. Like when he goes to see the photos, I was like, oh, thank God. Like I can finally tell Laura because I was trying to keep it from you so you didn't get the spoiler. So anyway, but like, yeah, Thomas is wearing a very nice sweater. He just murdered the love of his life, and he is
All of
incredibly,
that feels so ick. Like he calls her food and like really dehumanizes her. I don't like that.
and it's supposed to be like he's grieving, so it's not his fault. And I feel like we let him off the hook too often in this.
Yes.
And like Harry is incredibly upset with Thomas, but at the same time, Thomas is like, you don't understand. And Harry is like, maybe I'm being too hard on him. And I'm like, not really.
No.
Like, don't be
No.
harder on him. He's
Yeah.
not helpful. But Harry also knows that like Thomas's family likely set up Justine because they
Hmm.
wanted to take him immediately to her, and they could have taken him to anyone, and they chose the one person he cared the most about.
Yep.
Um, and so he kind of leaves Harry alone to get changed, and then
Well, Harry tries to
Amari,
leave too, and they're like,
yeah.
no, like
Oh, you can't
Mavra
leave
knows about this
until,
place. You need to wait
yeah,
until sunrise because you're going to jeopardize yourself and people you care about, like Bob and Mister. So don't.
Bob and Mister. Uh, but like then Amari is like, she comes into Harry when he's gotten dressed, and she's like, "You smell good."
Oh,
And
she's
then,
definitely putting the moves on him hard, and she
yeah,
doesn't realize it. And he's
no, she has like a
also like
weird look
really
in her
kind of
face.
trying to battle with like being attracted to her.
Yeah.
And the puppy is like, stop, don't, and then growling.
And it is Inari, Inari.
Inari.
So,
That's yeah,
so
it's not
yeah,
Amari, it's
yeah,
Inari. That's why I was thinking it's
Inari.
like a weird name.
It is a weird name. So like the puppy's growling, and then Thomas intervenes between the two of them, but right before he does, Inari is like, "There's something wrong with you," and we find
Well,
out
then
it's,
she's like, my mouth hurts.
yeah, he hurt her mouth when she almost tried to feed on him. And Harry's kind of like, what just happened? And we find out like Harry was saved by love because the White Court's one fatal flaw is they cannot handle
Love.
love because they feed off sex. And
They can use lust. But love is a different
sex
thing.
sex and love have nothing to do with one another. So like so he's like, oh, the last person you had sex with is someone you loved and also a vampire, so you guys commingled some stuff. Not vampire, semi-vampire.
Yeah.
And so he's like, so you guys have commingled like sources, and now like people can't really touch you as much as they could have before because you are protected by love. um
Susan's love protects you.
and so he and Harry kind of start talking about White Court vampires, and Thomas is like, I have something to show you, Harry. And he takes him to a room because we find out that
I hate
Wraith,
this.
Wraith, he's an artist, and he loves to make a portrait of every single woman he's fucked and who has sired one of his
I
children.
hate this.
And standing there, two down from Inari's mother, is Harry Dresden's mother. Bum 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 bum. They're half brothers.
I hate it.
Brothers, brothers, never were there such devoted brothers. So Harry, of
No.
course, answers with anger and punches Thomas, and he's like, "It's not true. We're not related." And
My
my
note says
mom
he
wouldn't have
freaks
had
out, unsurprisingly.
my mom wouldn't have had sex with a vampire. You're
To which
lying.
Thomas is like, your mom was like a
A
witch doing all
pretty
sorts of like weird things. Like,
She
of
was not a
course
perfect
she would.
person.
Of course
Yeah.
she would have.
And so he also is kind of like, Harry, like, my life is pretty fucked up. Like, my dad has sex with my sisters, and
Oh,
he isn't interested in men because, like, that's how you feed off of each other. So he feeds off the sisters to keep them under his control. And
yes.
all of the men who have lived have all died because they're
Yep.
not useful to his father. I'm like, wow, that's the one that the White Court voted into control. Sounds
Disgusting.
gross. Um, and then we like he's just like, this is all true. And he talks about how he's ready to go up against his father because his father is so controlling and he has made people like Lara his lapdog and
Hmm.
victims. But like the way it is not talked about, where like Lara is a victim, like
Yes.
these women are victims, and it's very much like they're still femme fatales. And it's like, what are you
No.
like, why
No.
is the one person who's like good in this entire scenario Thomas out of everyone?
And can I tell you that it was extremely frustrating that we're like talking about this, and then immediately it just like flips into Harry being like, I finally have the one thing I've always wanted, a
I got
family and true
so frustrated
connections
where he's like,
and
true connection.
reasons to
Like,
be here. And
he
I'm
also
like,
like
what?
lists off. This was my favorite part of Butcher, where I was like, what are you doing, sir? Where he just lists off different family members you could potentially have. He's like, well, I didn't have things like brothers or uncles or cousins. And it's like, why are you just listing random family members? It's
But it was
so
one of those things where I'm like, okay, this is a moment where we're supposed to feel bad for Harry, but the way that you brought this up at this most inopportune time, where you just described all the trauma that these people are
right.
going through, and just kind of like flippantly, like, meh, we can't care about that, but then tried to get us to immediately be like, wow, Harry really strives to have connection and family and community. It's like, no, wrong
See,
time.
he took it badly, honestly. And I go, Harry does not take the news well. He punches Thomas. Then he goes through a lot of the five stages of grief instantly. And so we do
But he
find out that
comes to
like
acceptance really
he
quickly.
does, because then he makes Thomas do a soul gaze with him.
Yeah.
And he does so, and he goes into this like dream like dark landscape where there is a monster feeding on Thomas, and suddenly
Hmm.
his mother is there, and she's tall.
Sh
I she's
she's
almost
nearly 6 feet.
I didn't
Oh.
know why we needed that detail. It was so funny. I wanted her to be like, I actually added a couple of inches so you would think I was more powerful. Um so she's kind of like, I've been waiting to see you both. And she says, like, Thomas is hungry. And she says that, like, they're in this landscape to have this conversation in her world.
Because she planned it.
She planned it. She planned for them one day to
I
meet. And she
planned for
says
my
that,
sweet
like,
boys to meet.
and then she says, like, Wraith pretty much must be kind of taken out. She hints at it. And she says that she gave them each a dead mom amulet.
Dresden and
Uh,
his brother both have a dead mom amulet to
it's beautiful if you
protect
think
them.
about it.
It's
And she's like,
beautiful when you think about it. I don't know if
I'm
it
joking.
is.
Oh gosh. Today is the anniversary of my mother's death, so I find this even more funny, just so everyone knows.
Oh, do we? Oh my gosh.
So funny. And so right to your earballs.
No! Get those dead mom amulets out of my earballs.
uh and she says that like Justine's love for Thomas kept him at bay with all of his hunger, and now that she's gone, the monster just wants to feed. Is this a plot point that comes up ever again in this novel? No, it does not.
No.
But she says it'll be harder for him to fight. And Wraith has to pay for what he did to their family. She then gives Harry the gift of intuition. And I said, something he never really had before.
A perfect line.
So she does. She's like, I'm gonna give you this gift of
She
intuition. I was like,
does.
what? Like, he's a detective. What are we talking about? That's his
Oh,
entire livelihood. He is bad at his job if his mommy had to give it to
we
him.
previously said Harry Dresden cannot detect,
He cannot
so.
detect. This is so funny. So Harry and Thomas get out of their soul gaze. And like you
And
said, he
Harry's
says,
just like, basically like, wow, that was all true. Can't believe it.
and again, we
We're
have this moment of
brothers.
like, wow, I have family for the first time. I've never had uncles or cousins or, and it's like,
But
stop doing that.
the way that he so quickly is just like accepting of it all, it kind of blows my mind. And then very much like I think there's some kind of comment with when he's having that type of like, I have brothers, I have a brother, and
Yeah.
I've never had uncles, but where he's like basically saying, now I have a reason
To live.
to live. And I'm like,
Well,
really?
well, Susan's gone, so it can't be her anymore.
Come
Can
on.
also we forgot to go over this, but they were talking about love. So Hannah had to get the Kindle version of this book because I forgot the library book at my aunt's house. And I purchased the Kindle version, which means I get to see what the majority of people highlight. And when they were talking about the love portion, they have a moment where they do the Bible verse, like love is
From
patient, love
Corinthians,
is
yeah.
kind, it is not
And
boastful, da 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 da.
Dresden calls it out and says that the Bible
Yes,
verse.
that's from the Bible. Over 1,000 people highlighted that section, which I find baffling. Why are people highlighting that? Do you not know the
Have
very
they never heard that?
also, when you're highlighting something in a Kindle book, like aka, well, technically, Harry Dresden, these Dresden files, they're mostly marketed towards men. So I'm guessing the majority of men are the ones who highlighted that. And also, usually when you're highlighting something, it's like, ooh, that is a key detail for the purposes of this novel. Were you highlighting it because you think that's the main theme of the novel?
Do you think that's why people highlight things?
Usually it's like, oh, this is a very important part for the analysis of the book overall, or oh,
You
that's
know what?
something that
I
resonates with
don't
me.
know if I was gonna say I feel like people are highlighting it because it's something that they feel a connection to.
And that just makes me think that these are a bunch of men who are probably like, I'm very Christian, but have never read the Bible. Because I'm like, well, you should have known that. Why are you highlighting this section?
Yeah.
It was baffling to me when I saw that. And I was like, why
Yeah.
are you highlighting this? They
I was a
highlighted
little
that.
shocked that you when you told me that it was highlighted so much. I was like, have people never heard this before? Like this seems like it's not new information.
They did that in a really quippy joke from Dresden. And I was like, why are you highlighting that? That's not important. He's quippy at least once a chapter, and the
Oh
chapters are
my.
not very long. So weird things that I learned reading this
Yeah.
is what men highlight versus what women highlight, and I was not happy with it. So,
I will say
um,
I when I like highlight things in books, it usually is like pieces like of text that really resonate with me. I don't know that I've ever highlighted anything thinking like, "Oh, foreshadowing." Like I've never been that astute to do that.
I
So,
mean, that's
it's
what I was
usually just quotes that I'm like, "Oh, I like that. I might want to
most
look at that again."
most of the time I do that. Like you're right, I'm doing something that resonates with me, but when I'm thinking of like a lot of people who and not to gender people, but go to our Discord and tell us why you highlight things that you highlight. But sometimes I feel like men often read books and highlight based on what they were taught to do in high school, which is like foreshadowing, which is themes,
Okay.
which is like those types of things. But that could be very gendered and heteronormative of me. So I could be wrong. But I'm
I
giving them the
also think
benefit
though
of the
it just kind
doubt.
of depends on the book, honestly, and I'm
Right.
surprised that people are highlighting much in general in this series.
I did a couple of highlights because like I could, but they were again
Because I
things where
could.
well sorry.
Just did it because I could.
I highlighted like
Bob and
in
Mister could be killed by
no
Mothra. Highlight.
I said I highlighted right isn't the same thing as cruel. I'm sorry because that's what Harry says to Thomas, and it's like you could not be right though with the way you're like you are right even
Sure.
if you're cruel. Like it was just very strange,
I will
but
say Butcher does occasionally have great lines.
yeah.
I
And
do
so
appreciate the openings to some of his chapter. I mentioned this many times that I appreciate some of the openings to his chapters, and I do think he has things that could be highlightable, but not a
yeah,
lot.
I highlighted good isn't the same thing as cruel, and then I highlighted like I liked this about his magical world building system, which is magic is what you put into it.
Yeah,
So Harry talks about making the 5-star pentacle and how he believes that magic is something to be wielded for responsibility and a use of power
yeah,
by those it's meant to use. It was a belief enough to tap into the vast power of faith and to direct it against one ear. And I was like, I think that says I think that's a very astute thing for Butcher to put in this
yeah.
novel, especially when we get towards the end of the book of like the overall messaging. So I do think there were sections that could be highlighted. I'm just not sure why it was love is patient, love is
No kidding.
kind. Or a quippy little one-liner from
I feel like I
Dresden.
just like when I think about books that I'm like going to be highlighting lines from, honestly, I would have thought more of like Station 11, where
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh yeah, there's a lot of this that I want to highlight lines from. And I'm not saying there's nothing highlightable in these Jim Butcher books, but they're
No.
just like in my mind, I think of them as just like such romps that I
Right.
forget that they're Jim Butcher does have moments where, like I like you mentioned, some of these lines are really good in terms of like
Yeah.
the world building of it all, or getting a little deeper into like Harry's psyche a little bit, or some of his reflections. Yeah,
And so Harry does have a moment where he's very excited and they agree that they will have to help Arturo at no cost or at like any cost.
because
And
Arturo's actually a good guy, which was why Thomas was getting
he's so
involved.
progressive with his sex work. And they're not sure what Thomas's dad has planned for Arturo, but they think he might be a part of it. And then they grab each other's hands. Harry goes home for the day. He talks to Bob. He finds out Bob didn't do his job and instead went to
He was
strip
just at a
clubs.
strip club.
So Harry threatens him and he has to go back out
He's
in
like, get back
Mister
in
and
Mister and
find
get back out
Mavra.
there.
And he's like, find it by noon. So then Harry has a meeting with Murphy and Kincaid at IHOP.
And
Kincaid
Kincaid is
is
a jerk.
a huge asshole. He calls Murphy a whore
I know.
and she beats him up and he's like, I had to see it myself. And it's like, oh, so that's how you test if someone's worthwhile. I
Yeah,
hate
that's
this like
the
thing in books
worst.
of like, I just have to insult you to your face and then takes these backsies. Like, no.
No, it's like that seems like it's part of your character now that you're just a jerk.
I just said so we have to forgive him for calling a woman names.
Yeah.
They have breakfast at IHOP where
And he's like, the
Harry
pancakes here are so good. I'm like,
Harry also
are they?
struggles to pay the bill, and Kincaid is like, excuse me, I'm a mercenary. Are you gonna be able to pay my bill? Like, they decide to hit the vampires that day, and Harry talks about the different things that they will have to have at the ready, and they have when they hit them. And Murphy asks, why he can't have a pocket full of sunshine anymore because she's like, didn't you do like a pocket full of sunshine? And Harry's like, I can't do that anymore. And I was like, why? For plot reasons? And then we find out it's for plot reasons because
It's
later
for
she's
plot
like, why
reasons,
can't you do that? And he's like, you have to be really happy to be able to do that.
which is kind of sad.
It is very depressing, but also very weird because I was like, you weren't happy in the first book. Why is that suddenly a
You know
plot
what? I
point?
really waffle on like caring for Harry and then the next minute being like, come on, Harry. Ugh.
Yeah. And so Murphy says she has to go to her reunion. She says there's like, oh, I'll see you. Countdown two T minus 2 hours. And then Harry is like, my gift of intuition is percolating.
Percolating?
Where he realizes that the spell is on a timer for the other people. So they died at
Yeah.
like 9:45 in California. But then when it attacked the
It's like
last time, it was
13
a
minutes or something before the hour.
yes. And so he's like, oh my gosh. And then he realizes it's going to happen soon. So he has to rush over uh, to help them out. He he's like, I have to get an hour to get back to Artur's people to try to save them. Here he goes to the studio to set up a trap for whoever is doing the curses. He has Jake help him, and Jake is like, "Oh, you're doing feng shui," and he noticed that he and Joan are like the nicest people, but he can't put Joan in danger because she has a
Yeah.
vagina, and that matters. And so Jake helps him set up different like chalk outlinings that Harry says are different spikes that will bring whatever the curse is back on the person who did it so Harry can figure out who's doing it.
Hmm.
Uh, Jake during this time is talking about Arturo, and he mentions that Arturo is definitely in wedding mode, even though they don't know who he's engaged to, but like he can tell when Arturo is about to get married.
Well, and they find out that he has like another marriage license that he applied for, right?
So that's Murphy calls Harry with an update on Arturo, and Harry asks about a wedding license, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, she has filed one."
His
And we
fourth.
we also find out that he has a will where everything originally went to his mother to control the funds, and then things got sent to his three ex-wives based on the prenup he signed with them. And his
Yeah.
mom is currently dead, so they're able to pull wages from that, and they would be able to pull anything they wanted from it. And this new marriage license does not have the prenuptial agreement, so the
Yeah.
will now go to this new wife. And so Harry tells her to find out who the person who is going to be married because he thinks that this is trying to go after the woman that Arturo is going to marry. And then all of a sudden
Yes.
there's someone there with a gun, and it is Trixie,
Trixie.
who keeps
Who
calling him Barry. Um
can I just say that all this Trixie stuff, I'm just like, this got so out of hand.
so I liked it because I was like, oh, this is the part of the novel I liked, which is like the whodunit little like zany like
Yeah.
noir kind of thing of like you can't get me. And I was like, if we didn't have this layered in so many like white court shenanigans, I'd be having a great time. But like also it makes very little sense because you can
The
tell Butcher
vampire of
does
it
not.
all ruins things.
And I was like, you could tell Butcher didn't really care about this plot because like
No.
he forgets about it for chapters on end. And I'm like, but I actually really like the noir plot. So could we go back to that for a second?
It's just
Um,
like all of his other books, the vampire, he cares so much about vampires
and
that it
I
ruins
don't.
everything else.
So Harry's half brother can get the heck out of here. So Trixie is on the phone with someone. She's like talking to them, and she's like, I can't do that. Um, and Harry's trying to convince her that this is a bad idea. And the next time she does the ritual, it'll come back on her. And she's like, no, it won't. I ruined your protective lines. And he's like, well, I'm kind of screwed. And also, she's not smart enough to know how to do that. So there has to be someone who's helping her. And so he does at this time realize she's trying to kill the women around Arturo, and she has no idea
She's
who his new
she's
wife will
just
be.
been randomly going after all
Murdering them.
these women around him. Like, it's got to be her. Nope,
And
it's got to
she
be
just wants
her.
power. He threatens her with the White Council, being like, you can't just kill people. And she doesn't understand, and she's ignorant. He realizes the next person on her list is Emma, and he's like, oh my gosh, she's a mother. You can't kill her. Harry goes to fight Trixie, and the gun goes off. It goes through the wall and ends up killing Emma. And Trixie also gets shot in the leg as a result.
Yeah.
Trixie is like, it wasn't supposed to happen this way. And it's like, in what way?
But you
You were
still
still.
wanted to get her, so
I
why
think
why
I think
like
she was frustrated because she shouldn't have been implicated in the murder. It was supposed to be like,
oh.
it took me chapters to figure that out, Laura. I
I was
was
gonna
like,
s
what's
I listened
going
to it
on?
not that long ago, so I was just like all because all of this Trixie stuff just seems so chaotic,
It's very
honestly, where I
chaotic.
was like, what the world?
It took me like very long to be like, oh, it's
Yeah.
because she didn't want to get caught for the murder. So
I
she
was thinking
like
it was just the way that it happened because it was like, well, that's confusing. You wanted to
no,
get
like
her.
yeah. So Harry's like, oh, the malevolent spirit definitely used those shots, but all these people come running in, and she blames Barry.
Barry.
And so he tries to like he takes the gun with him, he runs. Joan tries to stop him, and he's like, Trixie's the one who's up to no good. You could check the fingerprints because he like goes to shoot her, and she's like, you'll have to shoot me because I'm not letting you leave. And Harry is like, well, I'm not going to shoot you because feminism. And he
Because
flees.
feminism.
Harry returns home, and he realizes that the power using the spells must come from at least three people because Trixie isn't that powerful, and she was on the phone with someone. And he's like, oh, intuition, my gift. And he realizes that there are three ex-wives plus an unknown fourth person because Trixie was around him at one point.
Yep.
And so Bob comes back, and we find out that Marva has holed up in a homeless shelter, and she's been using it to bring in humans. We have thralls, who are people who are enchanted to be part of her power. And then we have Renfields, who are like Dracula's lackey, whose minds have
Which the
been
way that Bob got so mad at
Harry
Dresden
for like
for not like knowing exactly what he was referencing when
talking
he
about
said Renfields, I'm like, calm down, Bob.
just hasn't seen that amazing Nick Cage movie. So
I actually really liked that movie.
I haven't seen it, but I do want to watch it. I just kept forgetting it existed. And so they he's like, Renfield's like, their minds are broken, they're killing machines, they're just humans, but you have to kill them. And Harry's like, well, I can't kill them. Harry and Bob also discussed the curse that could have potentially been laid. Uh, and they're like, oh, Harry asked, like, hey, could my mom have laid a curse on a white cord daddy through, or like at first he's like, hey, could someone like lay a curse and then die? And Bob's like, well, it can only transfer through like lineage. So like if you set one, you would have to send it through your son. And he's like,
Or like that Loop Guru guy.
yeah. And Harry's like, well, I think my mom might have done it too. And I often forgot Wraith's name when I was doing talk to text. So I said, had been laid on the white court daddy.
White Court Daddy? I like
White
that
court
better
daddy.
than Lord Wraith.
Lord Wraith, he's the white court daddy. So Bob says it's possible. And, they're blood relatives. So that's helpful. Then Harry, when he was talking to Kincaid and Murphy, was like, I have a ride. And we find out it's Ebenezer McCoy.
Which,
Um,
why did he have to reappear? See, we're at the point now where things are getting really complicated again. And it's like,
again, if we go
Butcher
back,
started out strong, keeping this like
who done
to
it?
a whodunit, and now he's bringing in more vampires and now more of these characters, and it's getting very complicated. And then we move into the worst family reunion.
But it is something where it does make sense with my highlight where I was like, oh, that's a really good passage. And then I was like, oh, it's about how Harry sees magic as a responsibility, and Ebenezer is the one who taught him that it was
Because that's his
responsibility.
mentor.
And so he's supposed to go try to tap down on Mavra's powers for Harry, and Kincaid and Murphy can go in with Harry. And then he's like, well, did you think about Mavra's death curse? And Harry's like, I did
No,
not. No. And then it never
absolutely
comes up
not.
again. Then he has to go to Murphy's family reunion to pick her up. This scene was infuriating.
I
Um,
hated this.
I hated every single plot point of this. It's the dumbest thing I've ever read. There are so
I
many
don't know
moments
why we
that
had to include it.
there are so many moments that literally do not make sense. Like the way this book has, like, the hoops you have to jump through, the logical hoops of like,
It's honestly awful. Like, ugh.
it's just such a disservice to Murphy, and a way to be like, she's horny and lonely in later chapters of the book. Small spoilers for next week. But
Yeah.
anyway, when he gets her there, he finds her in a dress, and he's like, what? She has legs? And then we find out that Murphy's little sister, who is 20, is
Hmm.
engaged to Murphy's second ex-husband, who's
Her
like
ex-husband,
in
who's
his late 30s. And Murphy takes huge umbrage with the age difference. And I was like, you got married at 17 to a man in his 40s. So what are you talking about?
but then
Well,
it's
also,
she's like mad about it, but
it's
then her mom is like, well, you
well,
can't blame him for wanting to move on and start a family.
you didn't want a family. This is disgusting because, like,
What?
the implication of like Murph, who's like, hey, I had such a great relationship with my mother. The way this mom is defending her little sister's actions that are absolutely atrocious, where like the little sister comes in hot and is like,
Yes,
you're just an old hag and alone. And her
she
ex-husband is
literally
like,
does.
I can't believe you're just that lonely. You can't be happy for us. And it's like, it's because it's inappropriate. Again, like, I think it's so weird when you have books nowadays. Like, obviously, this happened in the early 2000s. This was often a plot point like these in the early 2000s. But, like, the implication of having sex with someone who your family member has also had sex with is really, really icky to me. I don't
Yes.
like it, and I don't want to know about it.
Right.
Gross. So, anyway, no one, I go, also, no one finds a big deal. And this is the most asinine portion of the book, to think that people are close family units and then are like, shrug at this kind of
I
betrayal.
know.
Like, um,
It totally
So
discredits all the information that we had previously
like Murphy
been
lives in
told. Like,
her
okay,
grandmother's old house. Like we're supposed to think this is a very close family unit, and
yeah,
it's not. So
it's very
it's
toxic. Ugh.
I really didn't like it. So we find out Kincaid is already at the homeless shelter, and there's supposed to be a blood drive today. So Harry's like,
Oh
make sure you fend
no.
them off. He's like, delay getting there. Murphy says she wants to call the cops, but he refuses. And then we also find out during this section that like Murphy's mom knows what she does because her dad was also what she called a quote unquote black cat who took black cat
Hmm.
cases, which are funky. And her husband was doing that when he died. So she's like, are you going to watch my daughter? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, I'll get you another burger and a piece of cake.
Like,
And
take
then
care of her because we don't
also,
want her to end up like her dad.
again, if her mother knows all this stuff, why is she okay with the sister's actions? Baffling. Anyway, that's the end of
It
the
was a
next
bad ending
chapters. It was a
to
bad
this
ending.
section.
Join us next week as we get into the action pack scenes because they're
Oh,
coming,
good.
everyone.
Oh, good.
And if you would do so, please make sure that you are following us at OWWR Pod on all the social platforms. Please make sure you're doing that. And make sure that you are joining our giveaway for our indie mission, which is coming up in
Yay.
just a few short weeks.
The
We are
Fires of
so
Treason by
by
Michelle
Michelle
Quirk.
Quirk. We're so excited to be covering that book. We will be giving away that book, plus maybe a few little extra Hour Pod goodies.
Ooh.
Ooh, you just don't know. So make sure you are
Yay.
following and joining that. Please make sure, like we said, you're also joining our Discord and our Patreon if you ever want to show us support that way. Um, Please make sure you are also rating, reviewing, and subscribing. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing is a great way to get more people to the podcast as we discuss bad choices that these people
Oh
make
my
at every
gosh.
single turn. And as we dive further into Hannah's just
What else can they
maddening talk
infuriate
to
us
text,
with?
Ebenezer, I don't know. So make sure you're joining
Hmm.
us next week as we cover the final portion of the plot of Blood Rites. Bye.
Bye.